start recording. So welcome to the Vernon Area Public Library's webinar with Maria Anna Mozart. We're so glad that you could join us today. Once our speaker joins us, I'm going to turn off my camera and my microphone, but you can still communicate with me by chat. I will be monitoring that. And when the story is over, I will come back and then we'll be able to ask questions of Maria Anna herself. So welcome, Maria Anna, to the Vernon Area Library's virtual program. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello to you. I am so happy to be here. My name is Maria Anna Welburga Ignatia Berchtold du Sonnenberg. No, don't say it. It's too many names. You can just call me Nenrel. Nenrel. In my day, 1751, we would make a name, my name, Maria Anna Nanarel. The little L there at the end means the sweet and the small. But of course, if you don't want to call me Nenrel, you could simply call me Horseface on account of the Mozart nose. It is what my little brother would call me Wolfrel and Nanarel. I am the daughter of Leopold Mozart and Anna Maria, a loving pair. My father worked for the orchestra of Salzburg, there in the beautiful hills, Austria, yes, where the hills are alive with the sound of music. Truly, they were. We believed that Salzburg was the center of music for the world. And the Archbishop Schrattenberg, he had a beautiful orchestra, and my father, the fourth violinist, was also the one to teach the choir boys. He was very good at teaching. There were born to my mother 7 children. But long ago, a little child, did it live to be grown and to have children of its own? It was not assured. 1 or 2 of your children would survive, and it was that for my mother, that 7 were born. There was a Johann and another Johann and another Maria Anna and another Maria Anna, and then I was born in the middle, and after me 2 more that went on to heaven. And so I was 4 years old, the one surviving child, and not a boy. But what could my father do with his longing to teach? We lived in the upper floor of the Hagenauers, and they had previously let this wide space to the dance master. And so the walls, what walls were there for a dance master? My father and my mother, they loved this space. Well, actually, my father loved this space, and my mother loved everything that my father loved. Du sagst? How do you say? She was, to him, everything. So, there in the dance master's wide space, he would bring up so many claviers, different claviers by different makers. For each clavier of a different wood would make a different sound. And same with the violins and the violas, all of these things he would collect up. And the students would come here to learn. And now there I was, 4 years old. And so at last he set me down to the piano, the clavier, to put my fingers to those 66 keys. fingers, 2 black keys. Some of them were white, and you could coax music from them. Well, you see, it seemed that I had a knack. My fingers agreed well with the keys, and it agreed well with me. And I was ever at that clavier practicing and learning how to read the notes upon the paper. At 4 years old, that whole year, I was my father's prize student, and then another was born. Little Wolfgang Leopold. He lived. Wolfgang was my brother who lived. And so can you see at 5 years old how I took my little Wolfrel into my arms as if he were my very own doll. But he was like a puppy and would not long stay in my arms. He was ever climbing down and moving about. Was there any time between him on the floor and crawling and standing and running? There was only 3 songs played. And he underneath the piano while I played them. Under the piano, or running around the piano, or climbing on top of the piano, or opening up the piano to look at the strings and at the keys, and then sitting next to me at the piano, pounding the keys right along with me. My brother who lived in a world of music. His every breath in and out was sound. We would play together. You see? You know the tune. A simple folk tune. Haydn set it down. There now, Wolfwell. Watch the speed of my fingers. Steady now. Music must be steady. That's it. And you can reach. No, this finger here, like so. Oh. You see? Running. Not only running around the dance master's high floors, but running with his fingers over the keys. He grew. He grew. He grew. And grew. And the music changed. Father. Wolfram, what are you playing? What are you playing? What is that? I play the Haydn, Father. No, you don't play the Haydn. That is not the Haydn. No, you must play the notes as they are written there. Nannerl, get the notes and turn the pages for your brother. No, Father, listen. Nannerl, listen. I play the Haydn, but I make it better. And indeed it was true. Wolfrel made it better. And then my father had such a big idea. I have 2 musical wunderkind. Anna Maria, we will take the children on a tour, and we will let the children play, and all the world will know the great genius of our 2 children, and that will bring my reputation back to Archbishop Schrottenberg, and will he not then advance me to the post as the Kapellmeister? My father was ambitious for the highest position of the orchestra, and so it was arranged. Our first musical tour. Now there was just enough funds to rent ourselves a carriage and to dress up with some ribbons the clothes that we had. My father's salary was not great, but he had a certain knack for writing a strong letter announcing that his children, his prodigy children, who were 6 and 11 years old. We were 6 and 11 for 5 years. It was easier for me to be tied in, and Frau stayed small. And so our first destination, the first place we played for the world, was Vienna. Can you see the Schönbrunn Palace as we came up the long drive there and were greeted there by the servants in all their finery, and all the guests came in attendance. There was powder flying everywhere. Everyone powdered their hair. We waited in the grand hall, not the hall of mirrors, but yet everywhere you looked, there were paintings of cherubs in every corner, looking down at you from the ceiling. We waited, and then in came the Empress Marie, and the Emperor Francis. Well, Frau and I, we looked at each other. We were so surprised. They were so very small. You would think the emperor, the empress would be very tall and very large, very impressive people. No, they were very, very small people, although they were powdered from head to toe and dressed all in white. And they came in and they sat down in their chairs, not thrones, very simple chairs they were, covered in white with gold brocade, covering everything. They sat. The emperor looked at the empress. The empress nodded for the Mozart children to play. We played. Two hands. 4 hands. Steady. Looking over at Father. Father keeping the beat. Mother. Hand on Father, keeping his beat. Oh, we played. We played. We played so well. And when we were done with that song, at last, there was this silence in the whole salon. The emperor looked at the empress simply looked at us. Not a soul spoke, whispered, breathed. In those days, you dared not have an opinion of your own, a response of your own. Everything was cued by the empress. And she sighed, seemed to have a smile in the corner of her mouth. The emperor took that cue and he said quite loudly, well, that is all very well. They are very good musical children. My father took his first breath. He said, but can they do it blindfolded or backwards? This was the parlor games of the day. Of course we had practice. We knew exactly what would be asked of us, and so we did. Father handed us our cloth. We took the cloth. We put the cloth over the keys. We played blindfolded. And, of course, Wolfrell turned around and played it all backwards and a little faster with his running fingers. And then we were done, and I got up and I took my bow, but my brother lingered behind. He would not get off of the bench, and then he spoke loudly. And he said, where is Herr Weigenstein? Father, you said we would play for the court composer. Where is the court composer? Everyone shrunk back into their stays. Well, said the empress. Good, very good. fetch up the court composer. And so Herr Weigenstein was fetched. Well, can you see him running into the throne room, pulling on his wig, his powder flying? He came in and he bowed, of course, to the Empress. The Empress said, "Our little prodigy is requesting the presence of the court composer." And the Herr Weigenstein looked over at this impudent little boy sitting there on the bench and back to the Empress, who smiled and nodded. This is what she would have done, and so it was what was going to be done. And so he righted his face, and he went over and he sat down, getting ready to play. And my brother did not leave the bench. No, no. My brother, Wolfrel, simply turned to the court composer and said straightforward, with no malice in his heart, "No, no. You will not play. I will play for you. I want you to hear it." "Yes, yes," said the Empress. And it was done. My brother played for Herr Weigenstein. It was a lovely piece. All eyes were on my brother and on Herr Weigenstein, who softened as they looked at the boy, at his own music being played, and then reached and turned the pages, which was my job. And then it was suddenly done, and there was again that silence filling the parlor, and Herr Weigenstein, he stood up and he nodded his warmth to my brother, and pulling his wig, went out of the room. And my brother stepped off of the bench, and rather than come running to me, I was waiting with my arms open to catch him up. Instead, he ran straight toward the Empress, running toward the Empress fast. He tripped on the Persian rug, and he fell flat. Oof! The air coming straight out of him. The air came straight out of the room. I rose up, but little Marie Antoine, the little Princess Marie Antoine, she ran to him. She was just his size, 5 or 6, and she helped him up. And he looked at her then, eye to eye, and said, "You are so very pretty. When I grow up, I will marry you." He played everything right, but he said everything wrong. But no matter, no matter. He ran straight then toward the Empress, climbed up into the Empress's lap, threw his arms about the Empress, and planted a kiss upon the Empress right here. And do you know what she did? She turned to my little brother who lived, and she kissed him on his cheek. And this was everything that my father sought. The kiss from the Empress is the seal of your reputation. How far would the word travel that the Empress has kissed the little Mozart boy? We went back to our lodgings, where we waited to hear how well the concert was received, and forthwith there was a knock upon the door, and we were told that the messenger had come from the palace. And the father went down, and he returned again, and he had a big velvet bag here in his hand, and he had 2 boxes gathered up here in his hand. Often we were paid with presents. The 2 boxes, one for Wolfrel, one for Nanorel. Mine was a dress made for a princess. White lace floating. Never had we had our hands on so fine a piece, and the ribbons a deep and beautiful purple, but too small. Too small. It was for a princess last season, a dress I would never wear. Oh, you cannot send the dress back for a different size. No, carefully, Mother began to pull out the purple ribbons. Well, Wolfral had opened up his box, and in his box, it is purple too. It is lavender, I said crossly. And it was. It was lavender. Lavender velvet. And it fit my brother. Hand to glove, hand to keys, with lace, and set his fashion tone for the rest of his life. We played again for the Empress and the Emperor, and at last our tour was done, and we rode home on the wings of that reputation. But the kiss of an empress, though it can make your musical life, it cannot cure you from fever. By the time that we arrived home, Wolfgang was red, covered in red. His tongue was swollen from it. It was hard for him to breathe. He was immediately swept into bed. It was the first cross words I ever heard my mother speak to my father. You push him too hard, she said. You push him too hard. The doctor came, and little powders, little white powders, mercury, and leeches to bleed him of the humors, rheumatic fever. We waited and watched. Any jealousy I had for my brother was gone. I just wanted my little brother who lived to live. Finally, the fever broke, and he came round the bend from that sickness, and the doctor said that we must be very careful, for the rheumatic fever will very often leave a heart weak. And it was that weakness in his heart that followed him for the rest of his 35 years. We didn't know it at the time. We were only happy that he lived, and up he got from the bed, and Father pushed him again. Push, 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 because it was Schrattenberg's birthday. The Archbishop Schrattenberg would have a birthday, and my children shall play, because if they play, and they play well, and we can tell them the stories about our grandeur, then I will be promoted to the Kapellmeister. We played, and we played well, and we were successful. Father was promoted to the Vice Kapellmeister, and he was allowed a quartet of his own. Well, that quartet would come to the Hagenauer upstairs, to our dance hall with our claviers, and chairs were brought around. It was my job to hold my brother, to keep him still. How do you hold him still? As they practiced, my brother was ever sneaking out and wandering around, and always finding himself there behind the second violin's chair. And finally, by the fifth rehearsal, in this fashion, my brother finally spoke up, and he stood right next to the second violinist, and he says, "Father, I should like to play." "Wolfrel, sit down." "Wolfgang Leopold, sit down." "Nannerl, take care of your brother." "I would like to play." "You don't play the violin." "Oh, do I not?" Finally, the second violinist took pity on him and said, "Well, let the boy play." And so he handed him his violin, and he'd never had a lesson. He had simply watched all those rehearsals, all those lessons that Father had given. He had listened and he had watched, and his so intelligent fingers now moved from keys to string, and he played the second violinist's part beautifully. He knew it all. Everyone in the quartet fell silent. Even Father fell silent. and it seemed as if the dance boards themselves fell silent. Oh, said my father, this is such a gift. Anna Marie, what we will do, we will go for a grand tour, a long tour. We will tour for 3 years. 3 years, Leopold, yes, 3 years, but the children will grow. No, they will be 6 and 11. There was enough in the purse from the emperor and the empress, 200 ducats, to buy a new carriage, well, a used carriage, but new to us, and a fine fur coat for mother, and enough supplies, and the planning was done, and off we went for a 3-year tour. Now, you must understand what it is to be in a carriage with the windows open to all the weather, bumping and rolling over all of those roads for 2 children who are indeed 12 and 7. There, ever on the bench, my brother at my side would not be still. Rock, paper, and scissors we would play, and we would hum the tunes together, and I would set the line, and he would find the harmony, or he would set the line, and I would find the harmony, and there on the road to Munich, the wheel of the carriage broke. We were all tumbled and pressed. Father got out for the carriage in such a state, words that I will not repeat here. Our Sebastian was sent with Father to go and fetch a new wheel, and we played Black Kingdom there in the forest for a time until a wheel was returned and we were able to bring the carriage in for fixing. And my mother said to my father, Leopold, it isn't fingers. It isn't fingers, it is only a wheel. Yes, said my father. Yes, it is only a wheel. It is not the children's fingers. He was to carry that attitude with him. Then always we would say when something would come, some disaster would befall, some troubled time, as a family we would say, it isn't fingers. Now, while we were stopped for a little time there waiting for the carriage to be fully fixed, another wheel to be made for the other side. You must change both wheels in a carriage for balance. The word came that an organ had been bought by a church nearby, a brand new instrument called an organ. And my father, of course, had to bring us to see that organ there in the church. And of course, Wolfrel, what did he do? You know what he did. He climbed underneath it. He climbed all around it, on top of it, opened it up to see, looked down at the pedals on the floor. My father showed him how to push those keys and how to pump those pedals on the floor, and my brother, small as he was, danced upon those organ pedals and had his hands skating across the top of those keys so that all who had come for choir practice stopped down below listening to that celestial music coming down from the organ. What piece is that, Manuel? I do not know that piece. Father, it is a piece that Wolfrel and I, we've been humming it together. Who's it from? Where did you get it from? Well, we made it up. You made it up. Yes, I said that you made it up. Wolfrel, did you make that up? No, Father. I made it up. I dare not say it too loudly. We arrived to Munich, and of course we played Prince Frederick and the Elector Maximilian. Everyone arrived to hear the prodigy Mozart children. And as we stepped forward to play, my father held my hand back. Wolfgang played the whole concert while Mother pinched my cheeks and began to pull hair at my dress. We came back from that concert, and Wolfram was so tired that the fever threatened to come on him again. In fact, he was sick for quite a few days. And I said to Father, I can play. I can play. I can play while he gets well. No, no, no. Why did you not let me play, Father? Now, when we were going along in the carriage and the horses are going strong. What, do we stop and change the horses? We don't stop and change the horses. No, they are playing well. They are playing well. The audience was well pleased in your brother. I did not remind him. He had not let me even try. Well, finally my brother was well enough, and we played a little more, and I never had a chance to play, and we were getting ready to leave, and finally my father said to my little brother, he pulled him aside, now tonight, when we are sitting there at the dinner table, and it is time for us, you will see, I will make a gesture like this upon my nose. Do you see? Do you see? Yes? Yes, like this. When I do this, Wolfgang, then what you will do, you will stand up and you will say, we are leaving tomorrow, but we do not want to go. We sat and we ate, and my brother gave him the signal, and my father gave my brother the signal, and I kicked my brother underneath the table, and my brother remembered. He stopped playing his games with his knife and his fork. And he stood up, not on the ground, up on his chair. And he looked straight at Prince Frederick and said, we have to go tomorrow, but we don't want to. He was telling the truth. And Prince Frederick looked at him and then looked over at me and said, oh, no, you cannot leave yet. We've not heard the Fräulein play. And so it was there in Munich. Not that night, but 3 nights. Mother had taken all the purple ribbons out of that dress from a princess, and the purple ribbons were tied up in my hair. My dress was lavender, and I sat and played. I played. There was so much in my heart. For the first time, truly, what was in my heart found its way down through my hands. And I wasn't just playing steady. I was playing because I wanted to. After one soft place, I knew it really well. I could lift my eyes and look over, and I saw my brother sitting in his chair, no sister to hold him there. Oh, by my music, his sister held him. I played my brother to stillness. I will never forget that night when my own reputation was born. Oh, how well the Fräulein plays. She is quite talented. Did you hear the way she played? You hear the way she leaned into that music. There was something different in the music, something that we had not quite heard before. Oh, there were some feelings. And that was that. From Munich, my father was paid 176 florins. It was a far cry from the 200 ducats we had from an emperor and an empress. But the tour must go on, and on we went. And we went all the way then through Augsburg and through Luxembourg, on and on, until at last we arrived into Paris. Paris, who thought itself the very heart of music, though we knew in Salzburg the heart was really with us. There we were going to play at the palace at Versailles for Louis XV, but yet Princess Marie fell ill and the whole city fell into mourning. We sat in this mourning long and waited for a chance to play. There was no chance to play, but we found ourselves at a few little concerts. And we heard something that we had never heard before in music. The music was not steady. The music went up and up and up and louder and bigger into a crescendo. And then softer and softer and softer into decrescendo. My brother was riveted on this new way of music. Now he had speed, and he had seen his sister's feeling, and now he had crescendo and decrescendo, and we never played there in Paris. Our time came, we had to move on for a concert. We were off to London to play, and there we went across the great water. We put our carriage, carried on that ship, across the great water. We had never seen a water so wide. We came off the other side into the carriage, and as we came around the high cliffs, there at Calais, my brother wanted out of the carriage. Stop, 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 stop the carriage. What? Stop, stop, stop the carriage. Out he got from the carriage. Nannerl, come. I ran after him, clambered down with him. Well, you don't wear all of this when you're in the carriage, but still, all the way down to the water. He went out on the water, into the water, shoes on, climbed a rock, stood on the rock. Do you see them, Nannerl? White birds we had never seen, gulls of the sea before. White birds. And he lifted his hands then. He was hearing his own music. Standing on the rock, the waves, gulls. And as he moved his hands, conducting, I could hear it too. We went back into the carriage. No, like this, Manuel. No, like this. I would hum it back to him. No, like this. Go underneath it. Yes. Now go on top of it. Yes. What are you doing? Said Father. This is what we do. What are you doing? It is. Write it down. Write it down. Nanrel, write it down. I will not write it down. Mother looked at Father and said, do not ask her to write it down. He must learn to write his own music. Yes, said my father. Yes, he must learn to write down his own music. And that was a new pouring out of what Mozart heard here in his head and what his sister heard with him, but he sitting on the floor with quill writing the notes down. No, that's not what I hear. It's not what I hear. I knew better than musical composition, and I showed him what changes he needed to make. We played then for King George III and Queen Charlotte. We played together. And then my brother, he looked at me and he said, Nanrel, the Vivaldi. We had not planned to do the Vivaldi, but we did the Vivaldi. Listen. He on the violin, and I on the piano. What is it to be the accompaniment? Some people will say that the accompaniment, oh, it is the lesser thing. The accompaniment hears, follows, knows, leads, and much of the accompaniment is not written down. Now we were playing with crescendo. And when we were done, I looked at my brother. Both of our eyes were filled with music. I do not mind that my brother went on to become what he became, 600 compositions to his name. What I do mind is that history has forgotten that we were a musical pair. By the time we came home from that 3 years tour, now Mother was pulling the backs of my skirts to make my waist smaller. If you want a musical career, my love, if you want a musical career, you will have to learn to sing. Sein Knabein Roslein, der schnickt. Der schnickt. I was not a singer, I was a piano player. But my brother went off for his tours with Father to have the career. My career was to learn how to cook with my mother back at home. I did not like to cook. But little by little, we waited on the letters. The letters came back and told of all the long struggles and some of the small successes that were beginning to come into play. Little operas were beginning to be formed, and Schrattenberg said that you must come back, and gave my father the post of the Kapellmeister. So my father had to come home carrying my brother with him. Reluctantly, my brother stayed there for a little time in Salzburg. But the music in Salzburg now, what was the music in Salzburg now? The music in Salzburg now was like what you have here in your own time. What do you call that? When you get inside your little box that takes you up and down one floor to another. I think you call it an elevator, and the music plays behind you just to entertain. This was the music that they wanted out of my brother. No less. Less, Wolfgang. We want to hear it in the background. We want to hear it in church. No, we don't want them to cry in church. What do you think? It was not enough for him, and he left. But my father would not let him go alone. And so, of course, I could not go with him. My job was to stay here and be a pretty flower, to be plucked, to be put in another man's household, so that I could become my mother and serve. Mother was sent with my brother. My mother, who lived for my father. Do you take a plant right out of the ground and put it somewhere else without a good pot to put it in? Without sun to feed it? Without the water of my father's voice and his presence? Mother took quickly ill. And while my brother was busy trying to make way for his music to be played, he was out a lot and late. And he came back too late. Too late for the doctor to bring aid. And so my mother died. There, alone, away from Leopold, her truest love. And my father, I don't know that he ever forgave him for that. I don't know that my brother ever forgave himself for that. It is the next pronounced change in his music. his own. Not a piece for an elevator. My mother's death on his watch opened up all the lower floors. I stayed home with Father. We watched for letters from my brother. Little successes, little failures, a deep love, Eloisa, soprano. Oh, Eloisa can sing like stars. My brother began to compose now, not the lower floors out of his grief for my mother, but adding to those lower floors, he began to reach high. He took Eloisa Weber's voice to places she did not know. No one knew a soprano could sing notes like this. He changed the way sopranos sing. Eloisa was not in love with him. She was in love with his music, but not with him. And so for a troubled time it passed. But Eloisa had a sister Constanza. Sister Constanza was more like riding in a carriage when a wheel will break. They were better suited for each other. They married. My brother never came home. He composed to me his greatest opera. Perhaps you know it. The Zilberflaut, the Magic Flute. 35 years old. His heart full and broken and marked by sickness as a boy. Eloisa was singing down below in the rehearsal for this Zilberflaut, the Magic Flute, and my brother all the way up in the highest floors in bed in a great fever. Those notes that he created, the last music for him. Those notes surrounding him, underneath him, all around him, opening him up to look at what is inside. My brother died. My father died a little too, and there were no more letters coming. No letters at all. There were just all these claviers all around, all these instruments around to be played by Mozart's sister. There one day, as I sat playing the music, my father came up and round, walking slowly as I played, listening as I played. What is that? What is that, Nanra? What are you doing there? It is one of Wolfie's pieces. Yes, no, I know that. No, just play. What are you doing, Nanra? What do you mean, what am I doing, Father? I'm playing the piece. No, stop. Listen to me, Nanrel. You don't just play the notes. You play what is in between the notes. Yes, Father. Yes. And so my father, now here at last, turned his attention to his 40-year-old daughter and began to teach. He poured all of himself into me. And yet it wasn't enough. There would not be enough. And at last a marriage was made for me, a Johann, who had 4 children by his previous 2 wives. He took me up into the mountains of Augsburg, very cold and very damp. Hence the 2 previous wives. We had 3 more children together in that cold and that damp, which was ever dampening the tune of my pianoforte, which was my present from my father for our wedding. 88 keys. I taught these children how to put their fingers to the keys to make the notes that my brother had wrote. And what did he call you? What did he call you, Mama? Oh, hush now. He called you Horseface. He called her Horseface. Yes, yes, he called me Horseface on account of the Mozart nose. My father got me a position with the Salzburg Orchestra to play the piano for the orchestra. The first woman in an orchestra ever. The first woman pianist in an orchestra. I played there, I played at home, and I collected all of my brother's compositions, and I gathered them up and neatened them out and sent them out, and I said to the world, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was my brother who lived, and he shall be my brother who lives on. Thank you. If you have any questions, we can do some questions and answers now.
Hi, thank you. That was wonderful. What a wonderful story about a woman who did not get credit for all her work, unfortunately.
Yes.
So let's see, do you have any questions that people would like Maria Anna to answer? I know there's some really nice comments in the chat, but are there anything you'd like to know more about her career or her family?
It looks like we have one chat that wants to know how long Maria Anna lived, and she lived till she was 70 years old. She was good and hearty. She lived for a long time.
And Sissy, someone here wants to know, did Nana ever play a concert again?
She played with the orchestra. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure if history knows. We could probably find it among the Mozart letters, but I don't think she went out as a solo pianist then. Okay. It just was
oh, boy, now there's lots of questions coming in.
Yeah.
Someone would like to know, did you create your own music?
There is no record that she ever composed her own pieces, but there is record that she was composing with Mozart from the moment he sat next to her on the piano bench. She was his piano teacher right along with her father. They were always humming together. She would take the lead, he would take the melody. She would help him with those early compositions. She was really quite gifted at musical theory. And so she is everywhere inside his music. When you hear his music, there's a part of you now that can hear that he had a sister, that there is a twinning in him. Of course, he went on then after his influence to do everything all on his own with all his life experiences, that's 3 or 4 hours to do that whole piece.
There's a couple of questions that are linked. I guess someone would like to know, were her children musically inclined? Are there any Like, do we know anything about their ancestors?
Yeah, there was only there was one child, the first child born with her and Johann, I believe was the first boy born, where they wondered if the musical talent had passed in through the family, and her father took care of that boy for a while to try to apprentice him and bring it out of him. But there was no further musical fruit that we know of falling from that tree. It was the same thing with um, Bach. Was it Bach? Who then his son, they looked to see there, he did some composing too. So there were some lineages in the composers, but not in the Mozart family.
Okay. And someone has a question, maybe they're asking for something specific. They want to know, did Mozart have some superstitions? Is that something you know about?
Uh, I understand of everything. I've read quite a lot about him. Uh, there was a certain need for ritual, and the reason he had a certain need for ritual is in one of his letters from Nannerl had said some of her bitterness had come out. You know, you get to compose it. And his answer to her was, yes, but then I have to write it all down for all the instruments. So what he was hearing there on the seashore with the seagulls were what he's hearing is how many instruments, a full orchestra, and then he has to channel them through himself to get them written down. And he's a person who likes to move around and not sit still. Plus, he was deeply influenced by Bach and Bach's mathematical understanding of music, and so certain rituals then showed up so that he might evoke that ecstatic sense of hearing the music. So we wouldn't put it in the superstitious category, more in the ritual habits category than an artist create for themselves in order to keep that source of music or art or painting or whatever it is that the artist is creating.
Let's see, someone wrote a comment and wrote, this was the best Zoom ever. Thank you so much. A real pleasure. um, let's see, what else is there? There's a question. Oh, right, so do we know about that there's any descendants that we know about? Like, do we know about their descendants at
I
all? Anyone?
don't. I think that's
Yeah.
a wonderful, wonderful question. And this is why we have libraries and librarians. There's a lot written about Mozart himself. There's a lot of theories about Mozart. This whole theory of Salieri from that movie Amadeus is more fiction than fact. But there is certainly a lot of evidence pointing to Mozart being very interested in masonry, that his goal was the opposite of the elevator. His goal was actually to write music that lifted and nudged the soul and brought humanity higher into our higher states. So from that, there's connections to masonry.
Well, I think we've gotten most of the questions answered. Just some really nice comments. Oh, someone has a comment. Someone wants to know about Megan. Megan's like what do you do to allow you to be able to portray others so well? Like what's your strategy? What are your rituals? Yeah, your process, I guess.
That's a big question. Well, I'm a nerd, so I am not. I'm more than a fan of the library. I love the library is like my piano. Yes. So I eat and eat and read 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 and read. So that's the first thing that I do, is to just read. And what I'm searching for always in a character is growth. So rather than just giving you a list of facts of this happened, this happened, this happened, here's a highlight, here's a low point. What I'm looking for is a way to allow the character to tell you about how they changed, how they grew or evolved. So it's a more vulnerable, personal story than
Okay.
facts. And then I do a lot of fussing the day of, listing and outlines, because I don't memorize. I just tell it as a story. I know all the facts, and I'm always trying to stuff new facts in there to keep it fresh. And it doesn't really arrive till the costume goes on. Once the costume goes on, I start to feel a certain presence. I'm not magical thinking. I don't really believe that Anna Maria Mozart is here in my body, but I do feel a certain kinship. Maybe that's a good way to describe it.
Okay.
Like let's say I had a loving sister that I dearly loved who died, and no one can tell her story anymore. That's how I feel it. I feel like Nannerl has a voice, and it's my job to give her that.
That's beautiful. I guess just someone would like to know, do you have a website with any upcoming performances that might be listed at other hosting by other places?
It's meganwells.com is my website. I've been a little tardy to get things on there, but I know I'll be at the Westmoreland Library all next month doing myth performances there. I'll also be at the Missouri Library doing Florence Nightingale. So if you want to know where my programs will be, why don't you just pop me a quick email? That's the fastest way, because I'm busy building Zoom sets. I don't think I'll get my website updated. It's megan@meganwells.com. You can always reach me there, megan@meganwells.com. And then I can send you where I'll be.
Great. Let's say someone would like to know more about your background.
I was taken by my mother into a theater class when I was 7 years old, and the job was to lip sync. And my mother had just seen, oh my gosh, you're all gonna know this movie, Papa Goose. I've got me 10 fine toes to wiggle in the sand, lots of idle fingers snap to my command, a lovely pair of heels click to beat you. It's going in your head now. So at 7, instead of lip syncing like all the other kids, I sang, and it was terrifying, but at the same time, it was so delighting to have a song come out and have us all be in that moment of delight together. I just love that. So I stayed in the children's theater. I went on into high school theater. I got a master's degree in theater. I worked in professionally in Chicago theater, won a Jeff Award there. And then at that point, I found this thing called storytelling, which I'd never heard of. I'm from a Swedish family, so we don't tell stories. And so I became a national touring storyteller for the last 25 years. And really the last 5-6 years, that world of got me 10 fine toes all the way to Goldilocks and the Three Bears and these historical characters and my theater background. And now I'm using my master's degree to build Zoom sets. So.
Okay. On another note, someone says your costume is gorgeous. Do you have a dressmaker? Tell us about your costume.
This isn't it fabulous? I had put together something the first couple of times I did this. I was like, no, you have to do it right. It's a woman on Etsy, Rachel Kirby Fashions. Isn't it just amazing? And it's got
beautiful.
Rachel Kirby Fashions, Etsy. It is historically correct. Rachel Kirby does historically correct costumes. So
wonderful. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, well, I think that's about it. I think we got through everyone's questions. They were really good questions. Thank you to everyone for just staying engaged and just participating in this way. And Megan, thank you for joining us again. It is always a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we hope you all continue to stay in tune with us at the library. The easiest way to see what's up is to go to calendar.vapld.info. That's where you'll find the latest news. Or you can subscribe to our e-newsletter. And you can subscribe to that by going to vapld.info/subscribe. We'll email you every Thursday and let you know what's going on for the next week. So anyhow, that's about it. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Auf Wiedersehen. Thank you.